everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Riding the Wave, a dedicated space for mental health awareness and suicide prevention, with the goal of fostering understanding, breaking down stigma, and providing valuable resources for those navigating mental health challenges. This week I am accompanied by some of the I'm Glad You Stayed Project ambassadors. We're going to go around, have everyone share their name, age, and pronouns. So, whoever wants to start.
Yeah, my name's Gavin Bailey. I am 18 years old, and my pronouns are he, him.
I'm Olivia Stabler. I'm 17, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name's Madison. I'm 16, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name is Robert, and I'm 16. My pronouns are he, him.
Awesome. And I'm Abbey, 20, she, her. So, today I'm very excited about this episode because we're going to be talking about what teens want their parents to know in regards to mental health. So, my first question for you guys is, what is something that you want your parents to know about mental health, just in general?
So, sometimes I just feel like people need to listen and not respond. For me, I've had a lot of situations where my parents have kind of felt like they need to interject and share an experience, but I feel like in a way that doesn't validate where I'm coming from and the mindset and the mentality that I have at the moment. And it's kind of like putting myself in your shoes, from the parent's perspective. Sometimes we just need to listen to others' problems and not interject and share our own experiences because there's only so much help that can be, and a lot of the time I feel like it's not the best. So
Yeah.
For me, similarly to what Gavin said, I don't always need a solution. A lot of the time I just need someone to hear me and go, yeah, that's really tough to struggle with that, and just see where I'm coming from. And maybe they don't know how I feel, but at least they say, okay, that sounds really frustrating, and just get where I'm coming from.
Just validate you more than,
Exactly.
Get that.
I guess for me, like Gavin and Madison said, but then also, like, it might not be something they did. It might just happen how it happens, and you have up days and down days.
I just feel like some parents, need to, be more understanding and, know that, their children, are going through struggles, and that it's okay to, not be okay, and, your kids aren't going to be, perfect. Your kids aren't going to be, at the top of their class. You can't expect the most out of them, especially if they're struggling.
Yeah. I think for me, something that was really hard was, it's very scary to be vulnerable to your parents because they gave you life. And so when you, for me, when I didn't want to be here and I didn't, I had the mindset that, yeah, you gave me life, but I can just take it away. I didn't necessarily, it was just scary. And so one thing that was, so great about my parents is they were very open to, hearing it. But the harder part with that was my mom worries, and she jumps to the worst case scenario very fast. And, any time that there was anything negative, if my mood was lower than normal, she was just oh my gosh, Abby's going to kill herself. This is not good. So just because we're having a down day doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go jump off of a bridge.
I mean, I was thinking about this. There's no crash course to parenting when it comes to mental health because every single one of our mental health challenges are different. So there's no single book or no single manual that can teach people how to, work with their kids through mental health situations. And so I feel like that's why it's very important to understand that sometimes you need to reach out and get your kid the support they need. I know it was kind of a challenge for me to get that support. It took a couple of years, actually, to convince my parents that, hey, this is something that's really important.
Yeah.
For me, it could be a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
It's like having cancer, It's not nothing.
Yeah.
So just urging parents to reach out when they feel a challenge. You know?
Yeah.
They can't solve all the problems themselves, is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and if you don't know what to do as a parent, there are professionals out there who work every single day with mental health, and they can, give you the support that you are probably needing in that moment. And again, like, I'm not a parent, but it would, there's always somebody that will know how to support you with that.
I think in the same light, if you have parents that are willing to be there and support you and back you no matter what you're feeling, then try, even though it's hard, because sometimes I even feel like my parents don't connect with me because they're not, with today's times, I guess. But make sure you're communicating. If you have parents that are there and are invested in your life, try to communicate what you're feeling, because they can try and guess what's going on, but communication is absolutely vital for any help with your parents.
Do you guys feel like your parents are understanding of your struggles? I know that Gavin kind of talked about that a little bit, but
It's taken my mom, like, I've tried to explain to her, like, recently, like, because, like, it took her, like, at least 2 years to get me, like, therapy and to get me some medicine, and, like, she's still, like, she acts like she understands, but I just don't feel like she does, and it, like, sucks, because I'm like, how do I go home and have parents that understand what I'm going through, like, and, like, I don't live with my dad either, so it's like, I have to just live off my mom's opinions, and, like, my mom doesn't always believe me, so it's like, how do I live with this, and how do I move on?
I had a unique situation. I was diagnosed with autism last year, and I was 17 when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
And so kind of what you were saying, it resonates with me, because for 17 years of my life, I had a condition that caused a lot of confusion and a lot of setbacks, especially when it comes to education. So for 17, I don't blame my parents at all. When we found out and when we went to experts and, we got that diagnosis, things really started to change. They started to understand a lot more. But I just can't help but think that for 17 years, I was struggling with issues that were very noticeable to other people. But my parents, who saw me every single day, just kind of like, oh, there's nothing wrong. It's just Gavin. That's just who he is,
Yeah.
So that's kind of a unique situation that I had with that. Just being diagnosed so late in my life. So yeah, big change. But.
Yeah. Well, and that's like a lot to take in, as I think I just got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in, May? And, like, once my therapist was like, girl, because she had me do this, like, test on my phone, and it was like, if you got 7 out of 10, you were, like, you would get diagnosed with BPD, and I got 9 out of 10. And so then, like, hearing that, it was such a shock, but, like, now, like, my everyday life, it makes sense. Like, I'm like, oh, that's why I act this way, or that's why I react to this way. Like, it's like, I don't mean to do it, but I do it because I have BPD. So I know what you mean by, like, it kind of, like, everything kind of makes sense, but it's hard, like, how did we miss that,
I feel like that's something that's talked about quite a bit with, like, later diagnoses, is because when you're diagnosed with something, it doesn't change your life, right? It's not like, oh, this is self-fulfilling prophecy, I'm diagnosed, now I am. No, it's kind of like, I feel like most people have that moment where everything clicks, oh, this makes sense, and they replay kind of like a movie, all of the situations that are related to that exact experience or that exact characteristic of your diagnosis. And so for me, I had the same clarity. I was like, so that was totally avoidable.
Yeah. And it makes you feel, like, less crazy too. Like,
it
you're
does,
like, oh, like, I'm not insane, and there's other people that every day live with this exact same diagnosis. And so thank you for sharing that. That's a lot.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
So there was, like, a while there where we didn't know I had, like, ADHD, depression, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I got diagnosed with everything, it was all in the exact same time period. right after I had a concussion. So all that
Just
stuff
all at
was,
once.
Yep. And they didn't really know how to help me through it because I didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Once I started opening up to them and stuff, there were certain things that they could help with. And then there were certain times where I'm just like, nope, go in my room.
I do this thing, and this is like a more recent thing that my parents are noticing, but like I'll get so upset or so angry at something, I say that I'm on mute. Like I just hit the mute button and I'm like, don't speak to me. I'm not speaking. It's no disrespect to you. I'm just not going to talk. And my parents are just like, okay.
I feel like there's a weird aspect to establishing boundaries with your parents.
Yeah.
I'm not insubordinate. Don't take me for someone who's like, oh, parents suck. No. I feel like sometimes though parents have this mentality that they need to know every single detail.
Yeah.
I brought you into this world. You're like my property. But yeah, I feel like it's a weird situation where you have to establish a boundary with a parent because, like you, I've done the same thing. I've had to be like, not right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm going up to my room. Don't knock.
Yeah.
Like I don't want dinner either. I'm gonna be up here by myself for sleep through it.
Yeah.
So establishing boundaries with your parents, that just got me thinking like that's such a weird thing that you have to say out loud.
Well, yeah, and it's hard because you don't want to come across as disrespectful towards your parents.
Exactly right.
But it's like you have to, at what point is like, I guess I struggle with like, how do I come across as I'm not trying to be a brat, but I'm trying to put myself and my mental health and what I need first. Like, how do I do that? And that's something that like you just learn, I guess. I don't know. Like, and I mean, I think this is a BPD thing, but maybe it's just a regular person thing too. Like, I'll react a certain way, and when I'm reacting in that way, I don't see anything wrong with the way I'm reacting. And then, like, when I'm out of it, I'm like, ooh, that was really mean of me, or like, I should not have said that, or I should not have thrown that across the room. Like, that was a little dramatic. And, like, me and my therapist joke, and I'll be like, sometimes I, like, get out of like whatever headspace I'm in and I'm like, that was really dramatic for no reason. Like, why did I act like that? And so like, yeah, I just like won't notice, and I'll be like, go up to my parents and I'm like, this is really embarrassing, but I'm sorry that I acted like that because I don't know that I'm doing that. So yeah. Okay, so this one is kind of for like parents and friends, but are you afraid of being honest or opening up about your mental health struggles because you're afraid of how someone might react or like what they might do? Because I know for me, like, I have been hospitalized 2 times, 2 psychiatric units, and after the second one, like, after that, I was just kind of really afraid of like opening up to someone because I was like, they're just going to send me back to the psych ward. And that was just kind of how my brain would work. And it still sometimes does that. Like, I'm like, they're going to send me back. Like, I can't talk about it. I can't show that I'm upset. Like, I have to be very, happy all the time because I don't want someone to say something and then me get sent away to even like a long term. Like, that's like my biggest fear. Even if it would help me, that's just like not something I'm willing to do. So I'm wondering if like you guys have that too, like with friends, family members, whatever.
For sure, I can start. Mine's more on the side of friends. I think it's really hard to know who you're actually talking to because there are so many people that are so incredibly fake and that are like your friend while you're with them, but then the second you leave, they're talking badly about you behind your back, which is honestly unavoidable. There are always going to be people in your life that are just like don't have you and aren't good people. So I think for me, that's really hard to know who's a safe person to talk to. And for me, I was blessed with very amazing parents that are there when I need to talk about something. And I have few friends who are really great. But also on the same end, there are people who are just out for, drama. And a lot of different things. And so I think that is definitely one of the hard things about sharing with your friends.
Yeah, because you have your parents, you know, that they'll support you, but then, like, you're like...
But then you want someone who's, like, your age that you, like, feel like you can connect with maybe on a different level.
Yeah.
But then there's, like, you know, some things that are difficult about that. And so,
yeah. Well, in high school is hard, especially because everybody just wants to be popular and wants to, like, have everybody like them. And, like, I get it. But at a certain point, like, when does that become, like, where nobody wants to be your friend because you can't keep anything to yourself? Like, no one trusts you to say anything to them because, you know, you just spill the beans, which some things, you know, and I get it. Like, if it's, like, someone's life or death, like, that's, like, a thing that you should be telling someone. But when it's something like, oh, you know, I got into a huge fight with my sister and blah, 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 and they're, like, going around, I don't know. My cousin has had some problems with a girl. She shared a lot with her friend, and the friend has now gone and, like, used that information so that people don't like her. And my cousin is literally the nicest girl in the world, and people are like, your friend, your ex-friend is crazy. Like, we love, you know. So, I don't know. That's my take on that.
I mean, I feel like it's very important to have those conversations within your friend groups because, like, not everyone goes through the same thing. So if your friends know what you're going through, like, you know that you'll have those people that will support you.
Yeah.
But, like what Madison said, you don't always have the realest friends. Like, literally, my own experience, I had friends tell me that they wished my attempt would have worked. And, like, it just, like, put me in an even deeper hole. And I'm like, this made me realize, like, who my real friends are. And, like, it realized, like, the true colors. And I'm like, it made me, like, as a better person because I'm like, okay, I don't need you. Like, if you're going to make me feel like this, then you aren't a good friend. Like, because people are just out for you to, like, they just don't want you to succeed in life. Like, they just want the bad for you.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard, like, friends, I feel like, when they don't understand what you're going through, they kind of separate themselves from you. And then it's, you know, then you're, like, struggling so badly and you're also losing friends in the process. And so that can be really scary to open up to your friends and be like, this is the reality of what I deal with every single day. But I want you to stay. Like, I want you to still be my friend, you know? So that can be really hard. So, yeah.
thank you for hearing that.
Thank you.
That was a lot.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, by the way. I sure hope you don't associate with those people anymore because they don't deserve you.
God, no.
So one of the things that I've noticed with my trends with friends is that I tend to distance myself. And it's not intentionally. For the longest time, my therapist and I had speculated that I had complex PTSD because I'd moved across state lines and I transitioned from school to school to school, 6 schools within like 3 years. So it was very difficult to build relationships with friends.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is that it's deeper than that. It's not, oh, I don't want people to get close because it hurts when they leave. Like, that's not what I'm going through.
Yeah.
What I'm going through is that I just don't like being around people all the time. And then I get lonely.
Yeah.
Because people don't, they're like, oh, he's canceled plans on us multiple times. We don't even invite him anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of hurts, but at the same time, it felt very selfish of me to say, yeah, I want to hang out, but on my terms every time.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do that. But
It's a hard balance.
Very hard balance, yeah. I just wanted friends that understood that I'm kind of a unique person in the fact that there's a time for me, and then most of the time is not the time for me. But still stay, you know, when there's the time. And so recently, I've been rekindling friendships with people. I got rid of social media for over 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that didn't help with making friends or keeping friends. But I want to point out something as well that kind of bothered me after my diagnosis diagnosis with autism, words really do hurt.
Yeah.
And for people with autism, there's a lot of words that people use that kind of hurt. Like, I've been blatantly called retarded by my friends as like joke, like, oh, you're retarded, funny.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the sped jokes, and it didn't occur to me that when I was diagnosed with autism, that my friends would be the ones who like played into the stereotypes immediately after I had confided that information in them. So yeah, I became kind of the subject of a lot of sped jokes with my friends, with close friends. And I just kind of turned the other cheek. Like, you'll make the jokes. I can't. You've been doing this your whole life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't expect you just to change that for me. But I will say there's a lot of slurs that really do hurt. And it's just a deeper perspective into that. Before I was diagnosed, I didn't really blink at that, unfortunately. Like, this
you
was
didn't realize,
it's like a magnifying glass on it,
Yeah.
and it became, so maybe that's selfish of me. I never really thought about it that way.
No, yeah.
Something kind of connected to that is, especially when people joke about like, oh, you should go kill yourself. It really doesn't feel like it impacts them until it's connected to them.
Yeah.
So you said you didn't really notice it until it was you. A lot of people, like, my freshman year, I had a lot of people I hung around, and they would all the time, they would be like, oh, well, go kill yourself. But now that I have seen it throughout our school, and it is a problem, a huge, huge problem, I'm like, this is not funny anymore.
Yeah.
And it's hard because other people don't see it the same way I do. And I have a really close friend who does have autism, and she gets so frustrated because she is like, this is literally my life and you're making it a joke, and it is a difficulty I struggle with, and it's all a joke to you guys. So I think that's what's so important about just it's not even necessary. It's not necessary. There's no reason for it. It's not positive. There's nothing good coming out of it. So why are you doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you and your friends talk about mental health? Like, is this like a conversation that's brought up? Because, like, some people don't, like, for me, when I was going into my freshman year of college, I was like, how am I going to bring up my scars? Like, I have scars on my arms that I did not have covered by tattoos at that time. I was like, how am I going to, like, bring that up if someone says something? Like, what am I going to say to that? Like, am I going to say, oh, make a joke and be like, oh, I got attacked by a bear? Like, and that is one option, but I'm not the type of person to not be honest about my mental health. And so if, I knew from the very beginning, like, going in there, if someone said, what happened, I would be honest and say, I struggle with my mental health. And even though that's scary, it's something that you kind of have to do. So is that something that, do you guys talk about mental health, and it doesn't have to be suicidal ideation. It could be, anxiety, ADHD, whatever it may be. But is that like a conversation in your friend groups?
Sometimes. It really depends on who I'm with and how many people are around. Okay. Because it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about people being fake. I think a lot of people are scared to come out and say, I am having anxiety attacks every night. I am, I'm scared to be alone because I don't know what I'm going to start thinking. Yeah. And I wish that we were able to talk about it more. But for me, where I'm at right now, it's more one-on-one conversations, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. At least it's being talked about. But I wish it were more of an open topic to be, sitting at a lunch table or sitting and studying and be like, so, mental health check-in, how are you guys today? And it's hard because you never know who in your friend group is...
needs that the most.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like it should be a big thing for like friend groups to talk about. But I feel like it should be an even bigger thing for like schools. Like schools should have those resources for students because some students don't talk about it. So there should be one-on-one opportunities that a student can go and talk about it. And like for an example, like if you have one friend that you feel very comfortable with, there should be a space in a school, like in a public place where you know that you feel safe, that you can talk about it, because some people aren't safe or like don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Well, yeah, some people can't talk about it to their parents.
Yeah.
I had a friend who couldn't, like, her parents, like, wouldn't let her go to therapy. And so she used a school counselor as therapy for, like, up until, like, last year.
Yeah, and our school recently just got 2 new counselors that are mental health trained, and so it's really good for CCA because, like, CCA's had a lot of mental health struggles, and it's not talked about. Like, nobody talks about it until something happens. Yeah. And that's the bad thing about it, is because it shouldn't take until something happens for you to talk about it. Yeah. You should be talking about it at all times.
Yeah. I love that.
Laws in Iowa have made it very difficult for students to talk to schools and school staff about mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, laws in other states as well. It's great that teachers are mandatory reporters. If you have issues at home, you have domestic violence at home, negligence, etc. Great. You know, it's great to have a resource like that. But I feel like a big issue right now is students don't know who they can and can't trust with information.
Yeah.
You mentioned not wanting to be hospitalized again. For a student, right now, the vulnerability is it's so easy for them to say, hey, I've been really struggling, and I just need someone to like talk to me about it because I'm not being rational, I'm not in the right mind, and I'm thinking about taking my life. A teacher must, by law, immediately go and report that information.
Yeah.
The severity of what happens with that student is dependent on the interviews that follow that. But students are in such a vulnerable state, and they don't know who they can or can't talk to.
Yeah.
And I feel like that poses a massive challenge. So when you brought up schools, you know, excellent place to do this. Unfortunately, right now, it's just not being done the right way.
Yeah.
It's not being carried out in a manner that will help a student. Like, you can talk someone off a bridge, figuratively and
Physically.
literally, like,
yeah.
in this conversation, in this sense, you could talk someone down. You know, you don't need to grab them and pull them away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my perspective on schools and intervention. And that's why private organizations like us need to step in, because we don't immediately pull the trigger. You know, we talk to people.
Yeah.
We have QPR, question, persuade, refer.
Yeah.
We don't just call.
What do you think is the biggest myth about mental health that you think your parents believe, that they feed into?
I think we can all agree that a lot that parents think is involved is phones. And it's, at a degree, it is. You know, when you're spending so much time comparing yourself to people on social media, you're constantly, like, having that negative, just all the negative feeding into your brain. It will take a toll. It will impact you. But at the same time, it's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
So as much as getting outside and going for a walk or just sitting in your backyard, like, that is immensely impactful in a positive way. And just getting outside and looking outside and just being there instead of sitting on the couch on your phone for 15 more minutes. It definitely does. For me, even, it changed, you know, even a little bit of my mental health in a positive way. And I think that's something that parents are like, well, were you on your phone all day? Well, I mean, yeah, but that's not everything. Like, school also sucked today, and my friends were jerks. And, like, there are so many different things other than your phones that also impact it. And sometimes just listening to all the things that also impacted my bad day, my bad mental health, there are more things than just social media and the phones.
Yeah. Bullying doesn't just happen on a phone, or like comparing your body type to someone else doesn't just happen on a phone. Like, you go to school. If you walk into the mall, you're trying on clothes, you'll see other people trying on clothes and you'll think, oh, I wish that my waist was that skinny, or like my quads looked like that. I don't know, so I'm trying to think of like, so there's always something, that is going to affect your mental health that's not necessarily at all tied to your cell phone, like you said. So, any other myths that parents or friends or whatever believe?
Yeah, I have a massive one that you guys might be able to relate to.
Yeah.
So I have one-on-one meetings with my pastor every single week. We just, we talk about our faith, etc., etc. I've opened up about my mental health with him numerous times, and he knows that I'm going into psychiatry as a career. Like, he knows that's the direction that I'm headed.
Yeah.
But in my denomination, mental health is kind of like it's a back burner topic. It's like, oh, it's not as real as having cancer,
Yeah.
So I said to my pastor, I have anxiety. And he's like, oh, you know what Luke says about being anxious, right? Be not anxious, trust in the Lord, etc., etc. And I stopped him and I was like, Pastor, sir, anxiety and being anxious are very different things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my parents have this same mentality when it comes to anxiety. I've had a really anxious day. Anxiety was really flaring today.
Yeah.
I'm medicated for my anxiety. So when I talk about this with my parents, I wish that they would understand that a little bit more. They're still working through that themselves. But they'll have a common rebuttal that's like, oh yeah, we all get anxious. We all have anxious days.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like,
yeah.
Listen, I can't stop sweating.
Yeah.
I can't stop worrying.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, whatever I do, whoever I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Like even with the closest people around me, with my girlfriend, like I have the same symptoms no matter who I'm talking to. It never stops. So it's not just, oh yeah, Mom, I'm having an anxious day. No, it's, Mom, anxiety was really bad today.
Yeah.
Like really bad.
Yeah.
And so that's just a really big misconception, is we need to learn how to not give the same connotation to words that are a diagnosis versus, it's a noun versus a verb,
Yeah.
Like I'm being anxious right now, I have anxiety right now, versus I have anxiety, the noun, the diagnosis, the condition that affects me no matter what I'm doing. Like, I can't even sleep, I have heart palpitations when I take naps. That's the degree to which I'm referring to. So for someone who's both religious and going into this career, it's something that I've battled a lot, like to a degree that I couldn't explain in a sit down,
Yeah.
But the way that I look at it is the Bible it's a supernatural book written 6,000 years ago.
Yeah. It's a lot of years.
The Old Testament is 6,000 years ago approximately. So when we talk about, this book doesn't really talk about the conditions that we suffer with, no, it's because they weren't really studied, they weren't researched.
Or spoken about.
Back then they had the humors, the Greek philosophers talked about the humors. If you're, sorry to be graphic, but if you're vomiting up this color, then you must be like depressed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, that's kind of dumbed down, but that's how the humors worked. This was science back then.
Yeah.
And this is the literature that they had.
Yeah.
So I separate the book from my diagnoses in that sense. This book is not a scientific book. It's not meant to be read like a recipe book, or, it's not meant to be a manual on how to do algebra. It's a supernatural book that talks about supernatural events. It doesn't talk about my life presently right now, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, it does, it pertains to your life. Yeah, not in the sense that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
They didn't diagnose people the same way they do now.
Yeah.
In fact, they would stone people for being having multiple personality or borderline personality.
Yeah.
Because they had demons. Oh, you have demons in you. So I find that terrible in that regard, and that my denomination kind of still holds those things to be true, despite numerous studies and evidence against that. That's how I distinguish it.
Yeah.
And I've battled with that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't overlook it by any means.
Yeah.
So I used to get super frustrated when people would use nervous and anxious as the same word. Oh yeah, I was like super anxious last night. I'm like, were you anxious or were you just nervous? Because anxiety is an entire different thing. Mm-hmm. For someone who is also medicated, like for anxiety, it's hard because I'm like, I have random days where I'm like, the other night, I was crying in my mom's bed and I have no idea why. Mm-hmm. I just had that day and I was like, I am so overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on, but I'm worried and I have extreme control issues because of it, especially with time. Yeah. I'm like, we need to get there on time, but I don't know why, because nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to, get fired from my job if I'm 5 minutes late because of traffic.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I have these things in my mind where I'm like, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not being nervous. When you're nervous, you're like, ooh, I got a test coming up.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Right. But for me, it's like, I got a test coming up. I really hope I don't screw this up and fail my grade and do this. And it all dominoes. Yeah. That for me is what my anxiety feels like. Words matter, and what words you use matter. And a lot of people, especially with depression, a lot of people use depression as like a synonym for sadness. It's not. And the same thing with anxiety. Anxiety is not a synonym for being nervous.
What are things that maybe from personal experience or just something that you've seen from friends that parents as a whole could do to better support you when you're struggling? I'll go first because I have one. I get that it's scary to see your kid in a vulnerable state, but the reaction that you give amplifies the child's reactions. I mean, I struggle with self-harm. And when I was really deep into that struggle, my mom found me, bandaging myself up, and she was like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And she was freaking out. Then I felt guilt and sad, like extra sadness and anxiety and like, holy crap, why did I do that? Like, why would I? She's got a point. Why did I do that? Recognize that is a very scary thing to walk in on and to experience, but your reaction does matter.
That's kind of how I am with my mom, is like, when I first told her everything, like, she didn't believe it. And so it's like with you, like, I got really defensive about it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to, like, defend myself, but to also make my mom understand. And it just kind of, like, really just sucked because I'm like, how do I defend myself, but also, like, get it through my mom's head? Yeah. It just, like...
without being disrespectful.
Yeah. Because, like, my mom's always like, I had made comments that, like, I wanted to, like, kill myself. And she's like, well, then I'll just go admit you into the psych ward. Like, that's always her first thing to say, is that she'll go and admit me. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I just want, like...
You want help.
Yeah. And, like, it took me a long time. And, like, now my therapist is, like, my twin. Like, I love my therapist. And, like, she fully understands, like, me and my mom, we don't get along. We, like, don't, like, we don't see eye to eye. And, like, it took me and my therapist a long time to come to a conclusion with my mom that, like, maybe I should just maybe stop putting that effort, but also tell my mom, yeah, I'll still be here, but I'm just not going to put that effort to you anymore, because if you're not going to give me that effort, I'm not going to give you that effort.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
So, good for you for recognizing that at your ripe age of...
It took a lot, because, like, I had just recently gone to a conference as well, and it was a leadership conference, and there was one activity that we did as a whole entire conference, and it was, like, claim common ground if you've been through mental health issues and your parents didn't believe you. And, like, the whole entire gym was just in tears, and, like, it really showed who, like, truly is going through hard things. And it's, like, And like they even said, like, if your parents don't believe you, and like there was like multiple people who had like their parent, like who had said that their parents didn't believe them. And it sucks because your parents should be the ones to support you the most. Your parents should be your number one supporters. And like my mom has always said that she's my number one supporter, but like there are certain things where I just feel like she's not. And that's what sucks, is because I'm like, what else am I supposed to do?
Can I piggyback off of a comment that you said that kind of resonated with me? Well, maybe I'll just admit you then. I've gotten that one too.
That's scary for a
That
lot
is
of kids
scary
because
one.
even if someone is joking like, "Oh, I'm going to go on a grippy sock vacation," like the reality of being like, "Okay, well then we'll take you," is like,
It's almost like a threat. You're like, no, don't. And
yeah,
you back
it's
up
like,
and
"Oh
you're
my
like,
god, no." So, sorry.
No,
Keep going.
it's exactly right. For me, it was a very difficult situation because anytime I bring up those emotions, it was like, oh, we just need to take you to get fixed.
Yeah.
We need to take you to get some help. But it was never like the remedial help. It was always like the lawnmower's broken. Go take it to someone to fix it instead of looking at what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
I did feel like that. I felt like they were just cashing out a warranty with that statement.
Well, and there's a stigma that like when you get out of the hospital, you're going to be, like you said, fixed. And that's not the case. Like, there's a reason why there's some kids that are like regulars at these hospitals, because they'll get out and then they'll realize like, I'm not better, and they'll have to go back.
When my parents found out like everything full-blown hit for them with what was going on with me was one night, like 11 o'clock, cops knocked on our door, sent out some texts, and what didn't help was my mom was just in this bawling mess, like freaking out, all sporadic or whatever.
Yeah.
And my dad just sat on the couch, just silent. I get through that night, got released at like 3 a.m. or something. I'm back home, woke up, my dad was like, what do you want to do? Still he didn't treat me like I was,
like there was something wrong with you.
yeah, he didn't treat me like there was something wrong with me. He treated me like he always has, which was really nice.
Like you were normal.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because my next question was actually, what is something that you appreciate that your parents do when they know you're struggling? And so that was a good answer. So
I mean, I just appreciate with my mom. She's like starts to like, just like she's like, I don't really want to say that she understands, but like she's at the point where she's like, okay, like
yeah,
and
we'll give you space.
Yeah, like she gives me that time. Like when I'm having a bad day, she doesn't like get mad at me or like do this or that. Like she lets me have my time. Like pretty much just lets me run wild.
And that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's actually, it feels really nice because like that's one thing that I have been trying to like figure out is like, will she ever like understand? Will she ever like know what I'm going through? And like I've started to like notice that like she's at the point where she like understands, but I don't feel like she truly like wholeheartedly understands, because like there's times where she still acts like she doesn't believe me and that she doesn't believe what I go through.
Yeah.
And so it's like when she does give me that space and she does like validate my emotions and my feelings, it does make me feel like really appreciative, because I'm like, there's some people who don't get this.
And it probably makes you feel heard, too.
Yeah, it really does. Because like before I was never heard. And it's like now that I'm getting heard and I'm understood, it makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I love that.
I really appreciate what my mom does, and honestly my dad too, but my mom and I struggle with the same thing, and she just keeps me in reality, and I can just get lost in my emotions and just feed into my worries, and a lot of it is super overwhelming, and she just comes back and she goes, okay, is what you're feeling reality, or is it a feeling? Is it something that's reasonable to fear about, Or are you just getting lost in...
The worst case.
Right, yeah. So take one step. You don't need to focus on the whole staircase. Focus on the next step.
Aww.
And then go from there. And I just really, really, really appreciate that because she's not invalidating it and going, you're fine, just stop worrying.
Yeah.
Just calm down.
Take a deep breath.
Right.
Do some yoga.
Which, I mean, all great things. We all do need to calm down a little bit. I just absolutely appreciate it from both my parents that they are so supportive and that they are like, we'll be fine. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
But we do need to go through this hard time first, and then we will get through it. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it will all be okay.
In all honesty, I'll go to my sister. A lot of the stuff I'm going through, she just went through in high school. My parents would put a lot of their time and energy into her.
Yeah.
So then I kind of got used to just doing stuff on my own, not talking about anything. And that feels bad to say, like, about them. But it was like they never handled that stuff before.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to. So then I just, like, got used to being alone at night, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's good to have an outlet, at least, like have someone that's always there.
She's the person where I go when I just need somebody to be like, you're overreacting. You're
Snap
fine.
out of it. You're good.
Yeah, because she can be like, you're fine. Just quit doing that. But
Yeah.
in the nicest way.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
That's always nice.
This is gonna make my mom sound bad, but I love my mom. She handles it well after the fact. But when I present something that's challenging me or something that's making me feel kind of down or just out of it, irregular, she'll tell me, she'll be honest with me. I don't know if it's like an autistic thing, if I'm receiving it that way. If I will tell her that I'm struggling and she'll go, I don't have time right now. Like, she will straight up say that. She'll be like, I don't have time right now. I gotta go. And I like the honesty.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then she'll come back later and talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate honesty too, because sometimes when you're like beating around the bush, it's like, just say what you're thinking, because I'm going to get more frustrated if it's like not an honest answer. And so honesty is always nice.
If you don't give me 100% of your focus in the conversation, it's pointless even having it. So I appreciate
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know it's weird, like getting shut down, but I appreciate it.
But it's helpful for you. I love that.
Well, because then you feel more heard, too. If you have, if she's in a rush and she's headed out to, like, something,
Always something.
then you're like, let's just talk about this later. So, you can feel entirely heard. So.
And sometimes it's good too because like maybe it feels like the adrenaline, like you just want to say it like right now.
Yeah.
But like maybe it's like your parent like was like, oh, I don't have time. Like it gives you that more time to like step back and think about what you're gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like how to say it in like the correct way so you don't come off disrespectful. So that you have that time.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's very valid.
Yeah.
If that ever happens to me, I just go in my room and talk to myself. People
Talk
will
to
be
the
walking by, and they're like, my parents will walk in and be like, you on the phone with somebody? I'm like, no, I'm just talking to myself.
Myself.
Like, I'm having a good time in here.
I appreciate that I can go on mute and just be left alone. I also I know we talked about how it's hard to set boundaries with your parents earlier, but my therapist and I kind of started working on separate. I've always been very, very close to my mom. And so and especially when I had 3 traumatic events happen in a year and a half. And so especially after all of those, I kind of felt like I was clinging to my mom and my mom was clinging to me. And so I've been working on kind of separating, being my own person, and being without my mommy. And so I think when they give me distance, that's really good for me because I'm realizing I can get through a panic attack by myself. I don't need my mom right there coaching me through a panic attack. I can get through a panic attack on myself. I can get through a a self-harm urge by myself. Like, I can do all these things that I didn't think I would be able to do by myself without her. Like, I can do that. And I appreciate that they've given me the space to, like, learn that I can do that on my own and that I'm capable of that. So, who are you most likely to talk, and this is more for, like, for parents to know, and I, like, want your honest answers, but if you're thinking of taking your life, like, you have a plan, it's all set in stone, who are you most likely to talk to about that? Are you most likely to tell a parent, a therapist, a friend, a teacher? Like, who are you most likely to tell?
My teachers are ones I would go to first, especially Miss Wilson and the counselors, because I feel like they know what they're talking about. Not that my parents don't know what they're talking about or my friends don't know what they're talking about, but sometimes I just need an educated answer, and sometimes I just need someone different.
Yeah.
You know, and I need a switch, and I need someone like Miss Wilson to be like, you'll be okay. Yeah. I promise. And I'm so incredibly thankful that we have her there.
I had a teacher. I feel like teachers are the most important. Mm-hmm. I agree. Teachers, I feel like what you said, I just need an educated response from somebody that isn't my mom.
And knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Someone that isn't my mom, and the teacher will actually validate my feelings. She will, and she just recently retired this year, which I can't believe she left me for my senior year. But she always opened her classroom. She was always open to everybody to, like, come in there. Like, there'd be days where I'd go in there and, like, she'd have a classroom full of people and I'd be in the back corner crying. I'd be hysterically crying and everyone would be staring at me. But I'm like, this is the only classroom where I feel safe enough to come in here and open up about my emotions, open up about what I'm going through. I wouldn't really say she, like, would, like, agree with me, but she sat there and she's like, I hear you, like, I understand you.
Validated.
Yeah. And it felt really nice because, like, not every teacher's like that. Some teachers are like, I got too much work to do, like, get out, like, bye. Mm-hmm. But it's very special to have those people because, like I said, my mom, she doesn't believe me, so it's like when you have somebody that you can, like, trust and talk to, it feels really, like, relaxing to, like, know that, like, someone hears you and that you know that you can, like, move on and you can go forward.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, mine's a teacher as well. Former teacher at West High. He probably knows who he is if he's listening to this. There was a time where I had to move out of my parents' house for a little while because things were not looking good between us. So I showed up at his classroom at West High while he was teaching. And I came in and I sat down right next to his desk. Aww. And when he was done talking, he came and sat down and was like, what's up? What's going on? I was supposed to be at school. I was supposed to be in my classes. I skipped school that day. And I went to West High instead. And he talked me through everything, and we had coffee last Friday. You know, if I was ever feeling like things were that difficult, because I've had that before. I've had the feeling like things were that difficult to that level. He's probably the first person that I would go to and talk to about it. Not because I want to burden him with that, but because I know that it's not a burden to him, that he'd be able to listen to me and understand and offer me some solid advice.
Well, sorry to break the streak of all the teachers.
Mine isn't a teacher either. It's
good. Well, honestly, in moment, like, nobody in the moment is too much to process, and then to tell somebody how you're feeling, because every time you talk to somebody, they're like, oh, well, what are you feeling? Like, why are you feeling this? And you're just like, or at least for me, I'm like, dude, I don't know.
And then they'll be like, I'm sending you away.
Yeah. No, so then it always hits at, like, 11, 12, and everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, and sometimes you don't know exactly why it's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
So you just gotta deal with it the best you can in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's what it takes for some people. I have been good at asking, like reaching out to my parents. But I mean, there was a time where I didn't tell anybody and still attempted. So I think it just kind of depends on how low I am. I think when I think of this question, I think of my friend in heaven, obviously, who reached out to me. And I think if he hadn't reached out to me, so much would have been different. Like, he would still be gone, but, he wouldn't have been able to donate his organs, and his family wouldn't have had time with him in the hospital. And so I think it was important. Like, I think that was, like, the universe's plan that he reached out to someone, because he very easily could have not, and they would not have had all that time. So I think I encourage everyone to reach out to someone. It doesn't have to be a parent, but if they are in that spot, give yourself 5 more minutes and just text someone. All Dylan did was said, "I'm sorry," and I knew, and I was making plans to get him help. So it doesn't have to be a lot, but enough to give someone the chance to help you.
Mm-hmm. Something to add. Don't put yourself in the place where you're alone. Struggling gets worse when you don't have anyone around you.
Yeah.
To have other people come alongside you and lift you up and say, this sucks right now, but we're going to get through it. Like we are, is so vital to struggling getting better. That's just something that's really important, is to have people around you, especially like teachers or friends or parents or like anybody saying the struggle will cease. Mm-hmm. It will get better. Like being alone just means the struggling piles on and piles on and piles on.
Yeah. So the storm always passes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes like to surrounding yourself with good people that are like good for you.
Yeah.
Because I could be in a room with like 20 people and be having the absolute worst day ever.
Yeah.
But I could be in a room with like 3 people having the best day ever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you could be in a room full of 1,000 people and still feel alone. Mm-hmm. But you can be in a room with people that you trust and care about, and it feels like you are the only people on the planet. So I think that's a really important thing that you just said.
Space is good too.
Yeah.
You can't spend every day at 100% right. But also give yourself the time of day to decompress, to say, okay, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need a minute. Let me go sit in my car for 20 minutes. I'll be back. Like, I need to just be by myself.
Decompress. Yeah.
But also not separating yourself. Like, you need a balance.
Yeah.
Of being by yourself and separating yourself.
Yeah, like isolating yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, my last question for this episode. What do you want people listening at home to take away from what we talked about today?
It's okay to not be okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Find someone to tell. Find someone to talk to.
Yep.
Don't keep it all inside, because there's only so much that you can rationalize yourself. Sometimes the problem is deep within you.
Yeah.
So it's such an internal issue. So make it an external issue. Talk to someone. Don't just
Bottle it up.
Don't bottle it up. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I love that. Yeah.
Words matter. I cannot stress it enough to say the words you use have an impact. And you don't know who's around you that's struggling with a word you're using. Just the fact that, like, it's not just a word. The word has a meaning. The word impacts other people, whether it be a word you said or saying a synonym of a word that means something totally different. It's going beyond thinking who's around you. It's going how it impacts who's around you, and just being kind that it all goes back to being kind. Is what you're saying necessary to say? Is what you're saying impacting the people around you in a positive light? And is what you're saying really helping people? Like, is there a reason to you saying a slur? And just being kind, because you don't know who's having a bad day unless someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey, Abby, I'm just having a really bad day." That would not be the time to say a slur. Ever. Like, just don't ever slur. So just be kind and know that your words matter, whether they are positive or negative.
Surround yourself by people that are good for you, not good for you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks. Well,
Can I add one more thing?
yeah.
Just for one more thing.
Yeah.
You said something that stuck with me and that will stick with me forever. Take an extra 5 minutes and text someone.
Yeah.
Take an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like if you're struggling, take an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive takeaway.
Yeah. Give someone the chance to help you. That was my little quote I was spreading for Dylan's birthday this year. Give someone the chance to help you. 5 minutes. One text. Give them something. So don't kill yourself. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode. I'll